and welcome to The Bar and Beyond, the SNL Legal Plus podcast, where we talk everything law, technology, and business. SNL Advocates is a law firm located in Nakasero in the heart of Kampala that has been serving Uganda and beyond since 1980. You can find all the information about our team and our services on our website at DLA Piper Africa Uganda. And for context, that same website is how we've previously interacted with you with case alerts, regulatory updates, and sector guidance notes. However, this year, as part of our digital transformation journey, we're adding this podcast to our communication channels, where we hope to host engaging and exciting conversations on some of the most contemporary and controversial topics in law, tech, and business. So do look out for those across our different digital platforms and let us know what you think. And today we'll be talking about digital transformation, trying to break down the concept and what it has to do with the practice of law and law firms in Uganda. And joining me for today's conversation are three distinguished gentlemen. Starting on my right, we have Mr. Barnabas Tumusingize, the managing partner. Worked into this firm in 1989 as a legal assistant. Worked his way all the way up. Became partner 2006. Became managing partner 2006, and has been serving in that position ever since. We're also joined by Mr. James Mukasa Sebugenyi, senior counsel. Yes, a partner, head of litigation at the firm. Walked into the firm 1994, I believe, and has been serving since then. And is also currently serving as the chairman of the Uganda National Mining Company. And as far as the profession is concerned, you actually served as the ULS president between 2011 and 2013. Right, yes. And then finally, we have Mr. Moses Segawa, our head of employment and labor relations and ING practice. Then walked into the firm, I think, 2004. Yep. Right? I'd been serving as partner since 2011, I believe. Yes. So welcome, gentlemen. And thank you so much for so many years of service. Usually people try and say, I think your years of service combined are more than the years I've been alive. But I think your years of service individually are, yes, are more than the years I've been alive. So yes, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
All right. And for today's conversation, we just want to talk about what digital transformation is, and particularly what technology has to do with the practice of law and how legal practice has evolved. And one of the reasons we're having this conversation is this is a buzzword these days, right? You'll hear it in boardrooms, you hear it in conferences. Everyone is talking about digital transformation, is having that journey of some sort, but we want to understand it in our context. Has it actually happened here? So even when we talk about the evolution in legal practice, people would want to know, has the practice of the law actually evolved? So I think the first question I would ask each of you is, if you were to think back to when you first walked into the firm and where we are today on this show, what would you say has evolved the most for you in the practice of law?
I think so many things have changed. When I joined the firm in 1989, for example, from the way we used to transact practice, first of all, the bulk of instructions that came, they are always by way of written letters. So the client wrote letters, they were delivered physically to the firm. You then work on those instructions, write letters again, get the messenger to deliver them to the client. I still remember that our box office number 2255 which I think as of now is now defunct, is one where we used to have the messenger go to the post office virtually every day, because lots of instructions, lots of mail used to come through the post office. That now, of course, is a bygone era. Of course, most of the work was being done on typewriters then. There was no internet. Subsequently, of course, it evolved into the use of the fax machine, which I believe people like you, Ruth, may not even have an idea about what the fax machine is. Yeah. So at the time we were starting, that was the way business was being carried out. Very, very much analog. I even still remember, even when we went, like, say, to do our banking, the banks were still also in that kind of frame, you know, where you had a card and you deposited money, it's written on a card, you withdraw money, it's written on a card. So, at the time we started practice, really, things were analog. Maybe as we go ahead, I can then explain how the practice has evolved, but basically as we are starting, that is how things were predominantly analog.
Okay. James, 1994, do you remember?
To a bit of 1990, when I really joined legal practice, having left school. Just to add on what Barnabas has mentioned, practice has evolved. Being a Commonwealth British system, there used to be boutique law firms. Even the names of the law firms would tell by the names of the partners or the individual partner. Most of the law firms were that. And I think that we inherited from the British system, the individual and the name of the firm. But we've also seen some evolutions which are interesting. At a certain point, every work was about company registrations and land transactions. Then we moved into the 1990s, expropriated properties. Then we moved a little bit towards the years 2000, we went into privatization. Then we moved from privatization and went into divestitures and things like that. And then we started going into serious business. The mergers, the acquisitions started coming into play. Conveyancing became a big item. And then now when you look at the things which we are dealing with, banking, everything has evolved. From the 1990s to date, what we who started practice in that time, the things which we are dealing with now are very interesting. Some of them I don't even want to talk about them, lest I embarrass myself, because I'm a litigator. But when we sit in our firm, law firm Friday meeting, which has been happening for the last 42 years, every Friday we sit. Then you get to hear things which are being talked about in that firm meeting from the different departments. And then you see the evolution. I will stop at that, Ruth.
Thank you, James. And Moses, digital transformation, I feel like right now your name is synonymous with digital transformation. But how really has your practice, evolved over the years?
Well, interesting. As you said, I joined in 2004, and having, joined the profession in 2000, we qualified in 2000 at the turn of the millennia. The Y2K, where everyone thought that, planes would fall out of the sky and atomic bombs may go off, at that transition. Well, thankfully that didn't happen, and we had the opportunity of getting into the workforce. At that time, the internet, revolution was happening. There was the bust and the boom, the Googles, Hotmail, Yahoo, were the thing of the day. I remember I got my first email around about that time. So joining SNL in 2004, really was at the heart of that revolution. And thankfully, the firm at that time, and these two senior gentlemen were my employers at the time, they they had embraced technology, because I remember I had a personal computer, which was not something common for associates across, but I started with a desktop computer. And, so, we were exploring, emails, having a personal email, farm email along the way. And so it was interesting, having to see the integration of technology and business, coming into business, not aggressively, but progressively. And so, going 2006, around about 2006, the labor laws were changed. And that was also a significant mark in my career, because that's the time when we explored as a firm into specialization. Prior to that, we were broadly a general service firm, a business law firm, but everyone being a master of all trades. Yeah, so these gentlemen decided to explore with me. I was some sort of guinea pig in specialization. So they set me up to start the employment practice, and went around with clients, briefing them about the new developments. And before long, it snowballed into something really, really big. And I think I was, if not one of the first specialized practitioners in this market. And once that worked really well, we went on to start, various departments, specialized departments, banking and finance, energy and projects, litigation, tax. Along the way, we became a full service firm. But, the progression started from 2006 when the labor laws changed. Yeah, and I think I also had the opportunity of having gone for some exposure to more advanced markets in South Africa at an employee benefits firm in Johannesburg. Again, I was given an opportunity by the firm, and I got some exposure in a more advanced jurisdiction. And again, you would see that technology was beginning to creep into the workplace. Yeah, so that has kind of been the journey, and coming full circle today, we see, now it's AI and, digital transformation. It's been quite a journey, but with technology, it's always disrupting things, and the rate of disruption is just getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. That's true, actually. When you mentioned the personal laptop, I don't know if you've seen the latest ones, our desktops. We call them TVs now.
I think maybe if I could also add something. And it came to my mind something about, say, the way we handled research, especially in litigation, and how it is now. Because then, research was confined to the libraries. So if the firm didn't have enough materials, you had to go to the High Court library, look for cases. If the cases were not there, then you're actually done. I now realize all you have to do is, in the comfort of your office, go to Woolly with its All England report. Everything, you can get it from the confines of your office. It was never the case that way. Now, even if I can't get a case, all I need to do, I can send an email to DLA Piper in London, and in the next 10 minutes, I'll have the case I need. So we've really come a long way, because I still remember a gentleman. I was in London then as a student in '93, and Joe Kibazo, who happens to be the son of one of our founding partners, Mr. Rule, was talking of the information superhighway. And I'm like saying, what is this? And even to put it in context, by 1993, Uganda did not have ATMs. Actually, I got my first ATM as a student in London. And a friend of mine from Zimbabwe, where they had ATMs, is the one who had to teach me how to use an ATM card. So you can imagine, by 1993, we're still so much within the analog system. But of course, as you now know, things have advanced. You can do whatever research you need from the confines of your office. For as long as you have very good internet, everything is there.
Yeah, actually, when you talk about research, one of the things they always stopped me from admitting or saying out to you is that these days, I think lawyers can walk into this firm and leave without ever having checked out our library, and they would have done their work.
That's true.
Yes. Well, all right. Thank you for that background. I think then that's without question. We can trace some, bits and pieces of evolution, whether it's to do with how we did our work, or what the focus was on, or what the legal practice areas were when it started. And I just want to talk a bit about the workforce itself, right? I remember in 2021, I think, is when I wrote my application letter to this firm addressed to the managing partner seeking to be admitted as a flagship student. And I think it's been slightly over 2 years. But I'm just curious then, Barnabas, if you've been managing from 2006, yes? Would you say that this evolution has in any way changed what you look out for when you are either hiring lawyers, looking for talent, or even what's expected of your workers? What do you think clients are expecting lawyers to do now and what they expected then? Is it, do they demand more now? Do you demand more now? Is it the same skill set that you looked out for 10 years ago? Is that still, or has there been some changes?
Of course, there's been a change because, as Moses or James have indicated, we're now a more specialized firm. So if I'm looking, say, and I have already said that, for example, we have gravitated from the time when we are looking for a lawyer who could, do a mortgage in the morning, go to court in the afternoon, go to the company's registry. We're now looking for a more specialized lawyer. So if we are recruiting, Moses will say, for example, I need a lawyer for employment. And therefore, at the end of the day, I'll not take that decision alone. I would have to say, Moses, what sort of lawyer are you actually looking for? What sort of lawyer are you comfortable with? Or if it is corporate, then I would have to sit down with the head of corporate or litigation, head of litigation, so that the lawyer we're now looking for is one who will be specialized, who will be focused in that kind of practice area. So that is point number one, that we are actually looking for a lawyer whose skills and talents are aligned to a specific practice group. But of course, the other issue about, there are those qualities that you would actually be looking for. Whether the guy is doing corporate, he's doing employment, does the guy know, or what sort of skills does he bring to the table? Is he a hard worker? Of course, now you're not going to bring a lawyer who cannot type his work. That one is like a given. You've got to get a lawyer who is very good at typing his work, because the era of getting a lawyer who has got to draft in ink and then send to the typing pool, those times are now gone. In fact, if you realize these days, when we admit students for clerkships, we always indicate you've got to come with a laptop. So times are actually changing. But at the same time, just like you have correctly indicated, the kind of lawyer must also be adjustable to the needs of the client, because client needs are evolving. As I've indicated, when we started practicing, banking was in the card. Yes. Banking is now digital. Yes. You see. Therefore, if, for example, I am looking for a lawyer to do banking, I'm not going to look for a lawyer who is strictly, doing a mortgage, see, and maybe going to Akiso, helping the registration of that mortgage. Because you now need a lawyer who can understand what digital banking is about. We're now talking about agent banking. So what sort of skills is the lawyer bringing to the table as far as the needs of the client are concerned. Yeah.
Actually, when you mentioned banking, you reminded me, I think during the farm trip, one of the points the banking team made when they were talking about the evolution of their department is that now they're able to do everything on they can monitor the system on their desks, right? And you only go in case you actually need a physical search, but they're actually able to complete everything online, which such aligns with what you said. And James, I'm going to throw this back to you because I feel like you bear some responsibility and accountability to the profession, right? Generally, the legal profession. Having served as president before, and I feel like you've actually continued to serve ULS in other capacities since then. You've had the demands of the new lawyer, the new employer. How would you say the Uganda Law Society is actually preparing lawyers for this future? Are they at all? And not just the ULS, but law schools. Are law schools aware of this transformation? Are they preparing the students for this transformation? And then I also know that you're very active in the profession, whether it's like international conferences and even those that happen locally. Would you say that the conversation in the profession is also changing to acknowledge some of these changes, to acknowledge technology? Are we preparing our members?
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about the lawyer of today and tomorrow, the lawyer of the future. If you're not tech savvy, I don't think you'll get a job in a good law firm. Like Barnabas has mentioned, typing pools are the thing of the past. But when you go back to the Law Society and the teaching institutions, what they are doing to improve on this, I've participated in the review of the curriculum of one of the manuals for LDC, particularly the Trial Advocacy Manual. And one of the things we have emphasized is because now the filings in the courts are all digital. The allocation, the filing is digital, the allocation is digital, the submissions have to be filed digitally, the trial bundles have to be filed digitally. So if you're a lawyer and you don't have that competence, so we are trying to ask that institutions which are teaching the lawyer for tomorrow and the future to include those particular aspects. Let them not generate the same lawyer they generated when me and Barnabas were at LDC. The lawyer comes in and he has to file even an affidavit of service. The experiences in court, some of us when we go to court, you have to have a young one to guide you on some of the things. You are only in charge up to the point of arguing the case. But the preliminaries of filings, me and Barnabas will confess, are now very complicated and interesting at that. But the way to go, because it's much easier. The Law Society, I know, like Moses has mentioned, specialization started coming in around the 2000s, 2005. And what has happened is that the Law Society has created the clusters. And those clusters are very key on trying to capture the interests of the practice areas or the specialists in particular practice areas so that they can improve and become conversant with the trends and the necessary aspects to guide them to be good in that area. Going to the international conferences, if one can, because the advantage about technology is some of these things are now being done virtually. You can attend an international conference, there is always a stream which is virtual, and there is always the physical attendance. So there is no excuse for somebody to say I can't afford it, because the virtuals are usually online, are slightly cheaper. And that is what ULS has also adopted, and all the other training institutions which are providing some of these upskilling skills and teachings are doing. The conversations are about AI. For the last 3 years or 4 years, I've attended IBA conferences and any other conferences which are international. and even for the ones of DLA Piper, which we do as DLA Piper Africa. AI has taken center stage. Technology has taken center stage. If you look at it, if I was to go back to the question you asked, the hard skills which Barnabas was talking about, the 80-20 rule, which I like to talk about a lot, the hard skills are becoming less, and the soft skills are becoming very key for the lawyer of the future. So for anybody who is participating and looking at this podcast, please, even you, the parents, invest in the children becoming techie as early as possible. Yeah.
I actually spoke about IBA, and I remember last year when you returned. Last year was in Mexico?
Yes, Mexico.
Last year when you returned, you brought back a pamphlet that had like the programs, yes, and just for us to have a look. And I think I sat down and said, let me just try and sort of map out what things were about technology, because that's my interest and specialty. Turns out I ended up marking almost 80% on a program. 80%? Yeah, it was actually about 80%, because almost after everything that's not tech related, it was tech and ESG, but a lot of tech and AI, like you mentioned. So I think that validates your point that there's been a shift in the conversation as well.
And if I could add, and this I would like to mention it too, myself and Barnabas have had a chance to talk to students who have trained in different jurisdictions apart from Uganda. And the students tend to choose subjects which are easy, because you can still get a law degree without doing the hard stuff. But we want to warn the future lawyers and the parents, make sure that the children do those things which will help them to be techie. Those hard subjects which are in the direction of AI are now very important. Don't just pay for a law degree and the child does those simple subjects where they get a degree. They won't cut it for Barnabas's interview.
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you. And Moses, I want to give you a different verdict, right? As our head of employment, labor relations, you've practiced this over a decade now. And one of the 2 decades.
Coming to 2.
Wow. And one of the conversations that comes up every time people try to talk about technology, especially in the mainstream, right, is technology as a replacement. Right? There's always, there's not going to be lawyers tomorrow. And you find there's even from the public and from lawyers as well, people saying, we're not going to need lawyers 10 years from now. We can draft our own documents. And we've actually seen some experiments in that regard. I think in other jurisdictions they've had AI and chatbots in particular taking by exams. We're seeing people experimenting with drafting documents. I think even for research as a firm, we do have people that are already embracing and using AI. But would you say there's a chance, a possibility for replacements in the next 10 years? Is that how you would describe the relationship between lawyers and law and technology, or do you think that there's another way to look at it?
Well, and the question you pose is an interesting one, not a new one. Automation anxiety has been around for a while, ever since the machine rolled onto the assembly line. There has been the talk that what horses suffered, humans are going to suffer, because the horse has been unemployed. It's just for recreation, because muscle power, the horse, the ox, and the human using muscle were all neutralized by machines when machines came on board. And an English economist, John Maynard Keynes, predicted that there would be technological unemployment within a century. That was in 1930, because he had seen what the horses had suffered and predicted that, if machines can get intelligent which he thought would be within the century, then humans could possibly suffer the fate of horses. Well, fast forward it's almost 1930, was Keynes right? I think we are all trying to figure that out because AI is here, and the machine is getting smarter. It has the intellect. So the question is, do humans survive because they had the intellect, the intelligent part of it? The ones who only had the muscle, they had problems with automation. They were replaced. But we had to increase our intellectual capacities to survive because the machine needed to be worked. And so there was that collaboration between the machine and the human. So today, this machine is also inching into the intellect because AI is, really machine intelligence. And the question then comes that can the machines do what we do? Yeah. And the professions have been lucky because all the professions, doctors, lawyers, engineers, accountants, they are usually a set of learned people or educated folk who safeguard their skill and their trade very, very jealously because they have a certain attribute and certain ethical considerations. So for lawyers, the one thing we sell is trust, So we bring a certain element, intuition, trust, confidentiality. Yeah. So how much can the machine do those kind of things? Some will say they're being trained even in emotional intelligence and all these things. But for as long as the client wants to get trust from a human, a fellow human, I don't think that the machine has much chance. So yes, AI has all these capabilities, but we still have a great chance. And if only we harness technology to increase productivity, in which case the pie becomes bigger. In fact, some may say with this revolution, the digital revolution, the pie is being baked. We're baking a new cake, so the cake is getting bigger. And now we have new problems that technology has brought. Data protection, privacy, that's now a big deal, cyber security, Clients now are globalized. So they have complex problems that no single jurisdictional lawyer can solve. So for me, I look at it as opportunity for lawyers. For as long as we keep the intellect higher than the machine. Because remember, even the A in artificial intelligence is artificial. Someone has said, it's still artificial, it's not human. So we have a good chance, and as far as lawyers are concerned, that attribute of trust which we bring to the table is one that gives us an edge. Yeah.
And I think just to ask you to bring it home now, right, to the farm.
Yes.
Because what I get from your explanation is, one, at least where we are now, there's still some sort of upper hand, right?
Yes.
Which we need to maintain with technology, but also when you talk about more opportunities, increased opportunities, and harnessing the power of technology to then make ourselves better, bake a whole new pie altogether, give us more reach, then it seems more like a collaborative relationship. Yes. So just to bring it home to the farm, when you look around still, I mean, I know you serve as a labor lawyer externally, but sometimes we also look at you as our labor expert internally for the farm, yes. And so how would you say that the farm is sort of adapting itself to these changes to technology, whether the farm as a system and a structure or even the individual lawyers? How would you say, first of all, that we are actually aware of these changes and adapting ourselves in any way, or are we anxious with everyone else?
Yeah, I think we have tried, and credit to our managing partner Barnabas right from the start. I look back, but I think easily 2007 or 8, we all got the Blackberries. We got every lawyer a Blackberry, which meant you had your emails, whether you're at home or anywhere, for as long as you had internet access, you'd send your email. So, I mean, we have been at the cutting edge of acquiring all the available technologies you know. So those have been harnessed, and those technologies have also enabled us, you know, get a bigger share of the pie, of the local pie. So we've been embracing the technologies as they come and as they are consumable, you know, as they become affordable within the market. Yeah, you know, by 2011, every lawyer had an iPhone. Again, that's a smartphone. So that also ensures that, you know, we are accessible to our clients. So we have tried to embrace the technologies that can be accessed in this market as much as possible. So yes, and the mindset at the management level has been that we need to be able to have every tool that can help us serve our clients best. And our clients are mostly those who are, some of them actually technology entities, and you know, we have to replicate, you know, the offerings they have. So you can't service a client who is a techie and you can't receive an email, or you don't have data, you know, that kind of thing. So we have been embracing technology as it has come on board. But even, perhaps if I may add, more importantly is embracing trying to understand how technology has evolved the kind of clients that we have. Yeah, because these days you find that they have migrated from the manual environment, that their systems, you know, have ceased to be manual, and now they're virtual, they are digital. So that means, what's your interaction with your client? If your client has migrated to a virtual environment, how are you going to interact with them if you are not virtual? So in some cases, we have actually been forced by our clients, but that's an answer that the managing partner has always been willing and able to stand up and meet, because of the criticality.
Yeah. And just maybe push you a little bit there, when you talked about embracing the technologies that come, would you say that that's your same approach to the even later technologies? Like, and this is now individually to you. Are you okay with your employees or with your, you know, your team using AI in their work? Or are there, you know, there's some caution about it as well, but generally you did say you still have the same embracing approach, or have we reached
The inflection point. Well, and you, coming from you, I see you really pushing the. But yeah, there is still tensions about clients, client information, client confidentiality. As we say, the one thing that we sell is trust, confidentiality. So we don't want client information getting into these systems. You know, that would be breach of the advocate-client, privilege. So that is a no-go, absolute no-go. But where we are open is that there are some tasks that can be, delegated to AI. There are some tasks that there is no injury to, or there's no breach of our ethical obligations. And in that regard, you know, that there are some neutral tasks that would not have any problems. And I think we have to be curious. Yeah. So yes, don't run away from AI, but use it. It's just like, I look at AI like a calculator. At the time when the calculators came on board, you know, mathematicians were a big deal. But does anyone hire a mathematician now? Perhaps not. But you know, the ones who still do calculations use it to make their work easier. The accountants, they use Excel and all these accounting packages to make calculations in real time, so that they bring their other, you know, expertise on top of, you know, those tools. So I think in the same regard, we will add our, you know, remember that element, that level I said, which the machines can do. Even up to this point, there are things that AI can't do, or if it did, won't do it ethically, or the clients won't consume it even if they did it. So that's where we still are, and we are guarding that very, very firmly.
And just as you let your record, we are trying to bring all of this home, and I just want to understand from you, what's the objective with all of this journey? And just for some context, because I know we just returned from annual retreat, and we talked about leadership transformation and the family on a 5-year journey. I think we did what 50. The farm will be 50 years in 2030. So we're on a journey to evolve with technology, to evolve with our clients, and I think we just want to try and understand what's the objective, what the ultimate vision is. And why also this is important is, as a plant that's being a proposal targets, we're in a place where some people would be comfortable, right? And I mean, I think we just saw the rankings that came out, Chambers and Partners ranked as band 1. Congratulations. And I think actually all of you ranked. I was seeing some of you have been ranked for 10 years, 20 years. Very inspiring. And so with that position, a number of people would say, oh, we're just going to serve the fans that we have in the way that we've been serving them. I mean, it's not working, definitely. But what's the motivation? What's the objective with this journey, with this intentionality that the firm is trying to show in pioneering digital transformation? Where do we see ourselves 2030? What do we look to achieve?
Thank you very much, Ruth. If you're going to build a house, what do you need? You need the blueprints and the roadmap and the matrix to guide you into that direction. So our objective is to be the law firm of the future. We've done our part for the last 40 years. We have braved all the challenges which have come. One of the biggest challenges was COVID. That tested everybody's resilience and capability to survive. We are getting ourselves ready. This is our blueprint. This is our roadmap. And we know that we want to be available, relevant in 2030 when we turn 50. What are we going to do? Is adopt digital transformation. What do we see as an advantage out of this? We see efficiency. We see productivity. We see being relevant to our clients, because most of our clients are now adopting technology and adopting approaches which are techy.
Yes.
We don't want to be left behind. We want to be relevant to our clients. The other thing why we are taking this on as a very serious objective and goal for the next 5 years is to ensure that we are serving our clients in a manner whereby most of our clients are very commercially minded now. And everything which is being done by them is being subjected to AI and technological standards. So we're trying to also position ourselves there. And it's all about relevance. It's all about pole positioning and being there with the clients of the future. That's what we chase.
And I think you hinted on this a bit when you were talking about the kinds of lawyers that you're hiring now. But there's a tendency to focus a lot or to get excited about the latest trend in legal practice. I think in your years of practice, you've seen this come and go over and over again. Some have stayed, right? And there's a tendency to jump on the next ship or to join the next, what seems to be the relevant conversation at the time. And then some people in their profession, in their practice, in their focus, lose focus of the things that remain at the core of, who they are as a profession, as a services industry, right? And so what I just want to what we would want to understand as we bring this conversation to a close is, even amidst all these technological changes and amidst this transformation, what would you say are the things that remain, right? We talked about the things that have changed when you started, but what would you say when you joined in 1989 and as you're here today, these are the things that have stayed relevant, whether as skills or, that every lawyer needs to retain even as they go through this transformation journey?
Okay, I think those that remain, number one would be like what I would call client care. How are you caring for your clients? How well are you doing clients' work? How well are you responding to clients' instructions in a timely manner? How responsive is the lawyer to the client's need? So with or without technology, client care certainly remains. I think that is something that really is non-negotiable. Number two is the whole aspect of hard work. I mean, certain things need a lawyer who is going to work hard, put in the time, whether it is up to 9 p.m. or over the weekends. I mean, hard work is hard work. I mean, that was a requirement when I joined the firm. That, I believe, is still a requirement right now. I mean, being good at what you do. Yeah. You see. There's also the whole aspect of what Moses called, trust. Things like trust, honesty, those values, you see. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you are a first-class lawyer. For as long as the client cannot trust you, I mean, you actually nothing. Yeah. So those values, as we have already said, is the client, for example, able to have, say, $10 million on your client's account and go and sleep soundly, knowing that 5 days when he wants that money, you'll sign a check and give him his money, rather than he's calling you and your phone is off. Guy wants his money and he can't even trace you. I mean, so whether in 1989 when I joined the firm or now, those core values, honesty, trust. Can your client trust you with his money? Can your client trust you with his will, knowing that I'm going to write this will and you're not going to go and tell my son that actually, you know what, your father wrote a will, but you actually left out.
Post it on social media.
yeah, exactly. Or post it on social media. Those core values are very, very, very critical. But of course, also skill, adaptability to new changes. I mean, what we have actually been talking about. The lawyer must be able to have the skill, be very proficient at what he or she does. I believe those are certain things that really stand the test of the time, whether from the time we joined the legal practice or up to now. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. I think I would actually attest to one of the things you mentioned, being hard work. One of the things that Moses is always telling us when he sits down with us is, some of these tasks that you've always been spending so much time on, you should be able to use AI, and they should take you less time. And when we incorporate those tools, I think the assumption was would start leaving work at 5 or would be working for less time. But what is increase? We're still doing the same hours. So I think I would attest to that the pie is getting bigger and we're still, so yeah.
Maybe these guys also have something they have seen over the years, which they think, yeah.
Gentlemen, what would you say needs to, away from technology, what would you say remains needed for the profession?
There's something about, I always talk about culture. And we talk about culture in two contexts. Are you cultured?
Yes.
And then the culture of the organization you're serving. Those are extremely key. If you decide to come and work with S&L Advocates or DLA Piper law firm, there are certain basic things you have to comply with. If you go to work with one of these top telecom companies, the banks, there is a culture. Unfortunately, we are seeing a trend of disregard of the foundation. Those things which have been tested and they have worked. And we see people saying those should all be thrown out. And I come with age and caution. that the culture and those things which have worked should not be thrown out as we try to experiment. And I'll leave it at that.
Edge, caution, and wisdom. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that, James. Was there anything as a pioneer for change? Are there some things you would still admit maybe don't need to, need to stay as they are?
Yeah, and the culture of innovation. Even though innovation leads to change, but you need to remain innovative, curious, and inquisitive about the boundaries in a positive way. Not the foundational boundaries, but the outer boundaries. And in that regard, I think it's a good time to say that we have, what we have done at SNL is to establish or commission a legal design lab in which we test all these nice ideas, where we try to find out what's working and what won't work. Because we have realized that today, and with all this technology and this complexity, the world is a complicated place. So the challenges that are there, have no solutions or have no straight solutions. So we have been honest in our approach to say that we won't come with a simplistic problem-solved attitude, but we come with a curious and empathetic mind frame, which is the design methodology. You come curious about what the problem is and acknowledging that you don't have an answer. Because clients are coming with problems that may have a legal dimension, but they are multifaceted. It's a spectrum of problems. And if you just throw a legal solution to them, they'll be frustrated. It may be a judgment, but to get to judgment in Uganda with backlog is 5 years. What's the desirability for a litigated solution when a client has capital locked up, millions of dollars, in a dispute, So what's feasible for them to do? Is it to explore alternative dispute resolution or some other methods? And do we have that capability? And I think we do. Or the viability again, or what, how viable is it for you to unlock? If you unlock that value sooner, it's much more profitable than you waiting 10 years, Supreme Court, to get X $million. When that's 10 years is 3 cycles of CEOs in a multinational. I think let me stop there.
Something about, maybe just add to what Moses is saying. That whole idea about practical solutions to problems. You see, at times we tend to look at legal solutions to legal problems. But you see, that is not always the case. At times, clients are looking for practical solutions, not necessarily legal solutions. I always give an example, just a very simple example. Your client is locked up at CPS on a Friday. You see, you want to get the client out of jail. You see, someone can say, I think let me put in a bail application. But it's Friday afternoon. Who's going to hear the bail application? So the more practical solution would be, maybe I go and speak to the OC. Of course, I know they talk about bond and bail. But you see someone who goes and speaks to the OC and gets this guy out on bond. And maybe if there is to be a bail application, okay, that can be the next week. But I think there is also that aspect that you see, the understanding that not all legal problems can actually be solved legally. And that at times clients want practical solutions to problems, though those solutions may not necessarily be legal.
I think Moses is always telling us that with sometimes legal opinions, lawyers are not the legal opinions, that intense, the error of legal opinions may be dead. We need to rethink our value proposition. But gentlemen, today we wanted to understand what digital transformation had to do with our practice, had to do with the profession, had to do with law firms in Uganda, in Africa, the world. And I think we have achieved that. At least I have understood that very clearly. So thank you so much for your time. and for your service as well. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to continue the conversation, feel free to engage with us at SNL Advocates across our different digital platforms. Till next time.